Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I remember that night like it was yesterday, even though it's something I wish I could forget. It was late, way too late, and I had just finished an exhausting day at work. The kind of day that stretched on forever, filled with meetings and numbers and decisions that never seemed to stop. I'd been stuck in the office well past midnight, and by the time I left, the city was empty, just the faint hum of traffic in the distance. It was that strange, eerie quiet that only comes when the rain has just stopped and the world feels too still. I had no time to think about it, though. I was focused on getting home, on the deal I had to finish tomorrow, on the next steps in my career. Business. Nothing else mattered. The street was nearly deserted. Just a few shadows passing here and there, but nothing too out of the ordinary. The only sound was the steady click of my shoes against the wet pavement, and the occasional flicker of a street lamp that was just barely holding on to its light. The mist from the rain still hung in the air, curling around the edges of everything, making the city seem distant, almost dreamlike. And then, I saw her. At first, I thought I was just tired. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, she was standing there completely still, under the pale glow of a streetlight at the end of the street. I couldn't even make out her face at first, just a figure, motionless, as if frozen in time. She was too still, like a statue. My mind tried to brush it off. Some odd woman just standing around late at night, probably waiting for someone. I couldn't be bothered with that. I kept walking, a little faster now, my thoughts returning to work. But then I looked at her, really looked at her. And that's when it happened. That's when I felt it. Her smile. It was wide, unnaturally wide. Like someone had stretched it too far, beyond what a human face should be able to do. A grin that sent a chill down my spine. Something about it felt wrong, like it didn't belong on a real person's face. And her eyes, those eyes, they were sharp, bright, almost glowing. I'm not sure how long I stood there staring at her, but when I finally managed to look away, my heart skipped a beat. Something wasn't right. I could feel her. It wasn't just that I'd seen her. It felt like she was watching me, like she was waiting for something. I quickened my pace, trying to shake the feeling, telling myself she was just some weirdo, probably high or drunk. No big deal, but then something happened. I glanced back. She was closer. Impossible, right? She hadn't moved. She couldn't have. I hadn't seen her take a step, not a single inch of movement. But there she was, standing just a few feet closer, still smiling that same wide, awful smile. Her eyes were locked on mine, and I felt it, like I was trapped in her gaze. I couldn't look away. I didn't want to look away. My chest tightened, my stomach churned. The rational part of me, the part that always dismissed stories about things that go bump in the night, was screaming at me to stop being ridiculous. But I couldn't. Something was happening here, something that made no sense, but I could feel it in my bones. I turned away. I couldn't look at her anymore. My feet were moving faster now, my legs carrying me down the street like they had a mind of their own. I needed to get home. I glanced back again, my breath shallow. She was closer still. How? How could she have moved that quickly? My mind was racing now, but the more I thought about it, the worse it became. Something was wrong, very wrong. I wasn't alone. I broke into a run, ignoring the cold air biting at my skin, but I didn't dare look behind me. I couldn't. If I did, I knew she'd be there again. That horrible smile, those gleaming eyes, that terrible stillness. I just had to get to my apartment. I reached the building, and for a second, I thought I'd escaped it all. I unlocked the door with trembling hands and stepped inside, locking it behind me like a madman. My heart was still racing, my hands shaking. The lights were on, my apartment familiar, safe. But then, I saw something in the corner of my eye. I froze. It was the mirror in the hallway, and there she was, in the reflection. The same woman, standing in the same pose, that same smile stretched across her face. But how? She wasn't in the hallway. She couldn't be. I turned, heart pounding, but the hallway was empty. I looked back at the mirror. She was still there, watching. Her smile widening, her eyes gleaming, like she was getting closer and closer. No, this couldn't be happening. I was imagining things. I was just tired. I had to be. I wasn't some fool who believed in urban legends, in stories about ghosts and spirits. There was no way. I tried to walk away, to leave the hallway, but I couldn't. My feet wouldn't move. I was rooted in place, trapped in that reflection, unable to tear my eyes from it. That's when I heard it. A voice, software whispering. You looked. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. You looked, and now you belong. The words echoed in my mind like a drumbeat. I tried to turn away, to run, but my body refused to listen. I was frozen. A part of me, deep down, knew it was already too late. She had already claimed me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even cry out. My mouth was frozen, locked in the same grotesque smile she wore. I looked into the mirror one last time, and there was no escaping it. I had become one of them. The hunt had begun. I thought once I stepped inside my apartment, I'd be safe. I thought that the familiar walls, the comforting silence of my own space, would make everything disappear. But as soon as the door clicked shut behind me, I knew something was terribly wrong. The air was too cold. The silence was too thick. It pressed down on my chest, like the walls themselves were closing in around me, tightening, suffocating. I could hear my heartbeat, faster now, erratic, thumping in my ears. The apartment, my sanctuary, felt like a cage. I tried to shake it off. I'm a businessman, not a man who believes in the supernatural, in ghost stories or urban legends. So I forced myself to take a deep breath, to tell myself this was nothing more than a result of too many late nights and too much stress. But as I moved through the hallway, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the stillness, something in my gut twisted. Something was following me. I reached the kitchen, hoping that a glass of water would ground me. The faint glow of the city outside filtered through the blinds, casting shadows that flickered unnervingly. I tried to ignore it, to focus on the glass in my hand, the cold water as it filled the cup. But there was a noise, faint at first, barely noticeable, but it was enough to make me freeze. A whisper. Look at me. I felt it in my bones, a cold dread creeping up my spine. I turned, nothing. Just the empty room, the shadows on the walls. But I felt it. I felt her presence like a weight pressing in from all sides. My breath hitched, and I tried to calm myself, convincing myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Nothing to worry about. But then I saw it. In the kitchen window. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light. The fog from the rain outside had formed a hazy silhouette, nothing more. But then the shape moved. My heart stopped. There, in the reflection, I saw her. Her face, twisted in that unnatural grin, wide and horrible. I turned sharply, my breath catching in my throat, but she wasn't there. The window was empty. I should have known then. I should have known that nothing was right, but I couldn't stop myself from looking again. I shouldn't have. She was closer now. Her eyes, those gleaming eyes, locked onto mine, and I swear I could feel it, the pressure of her gaze, like hands pressing on my skull. I took a step back, my body trembling, my legs weakening beneath me. I could feel her in the glass, in the reflection, closer than before. The smile stretched wider, impossibly wide, and it wasn't just her face. It was her presence, filling every inch of the reflection, as if she was stepping into my world. I could barely breathe. I could barely think. I had to get out. I had to get away from her, from whatever this was. I turned, stumbling toward the hallway, but I felt it before I even saw it. She was there, in the hallway mirror. I froze. My heart stopped. Her reflection stared back at me, that same terrible smile, her eyes bright and gleaming, never leaving me. But when I turned my head, nothing. The hallway was empty. There was no one there. Only the reflection. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to turn back to the mirror, but my eyes betrayed me. They were drawn to it like magnets, helpless to resist. I tried to run, I tried to get away, but I couldn't. And then I saw it. She wasn't just in the mirror anymore, she was stepping forward, out of the glass, as if the reflection itself had begun to tear, rip open, and spill into the room. Her form was impossibly close now. That smile was stretching wider, impossibly wide, and I could feel the weight of her presence, her eyes boring into me, even as I turned away. I backed up, desperately looking for an escape. The door. The door was the only way out. I darted toward it, but I couldn't escape the feeling that I wasn't alone. She was here, in this apartment, in every corner, every reflection. I reached for the door handle, and then I heard it, a whisper. "Look at me." I froze, hand still on the door. My breath caught in my throat and I didn't dare move. I wanted to run, to scream, but my feet wouldn't obey. I didn't turn, I couldn't. I couldn't bear to see her, couldn't face that grin one more time. And yet, when I dared a glance back, my heart dropped into my stomach. There she was, right behind me. Her figure, impossibly close now. Her smile, widening, impossibly wide, like she was about to devour me whole. It wasn't just her reflection anymore. She was here. I turned. I ran, my legs burning as I fled toward the door, but the air around me thickened. The walls seemed to close in. The room shifted, as if it were alive, and I knew then that no matter how far I ran, no matter how fast I moved, she would always be a step behind, always, watching, waiting, smiling. And then I heard it, that voice again. "You belong to me now." And as much as I wanted to scream, I could only manage one thing. I smiled. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The moment I closed my eyes, I saw her smile. It haunted me like a ghost, stretching wider and wider, impossibly wide, until I felt it crawling under my skin, suffocating me. I could still hear that whisper in my head, soft and chilling, as if it was right next to me. "You looked," she said, and every time I tried to push it away, it echoed louder, sharper. I tossed and turned in my bed, the shadows in my room seeming to twist and shift with every flicker of the streetlight outside. I knew it wasn't real. I had to know it wasn't real. But the fear clung to me like a second skin, creeping under my clothes into my very bones. There was no escaping her. No escape from that smile. I tried to sleep. I tried to close my eyes, but the images just wouldn't go away. Her face was everywhere, everywhere. A stretch of skin too wide, eyes too bright, grinning, always grinning. She wasn't just in my nightmares. She was in my waking thoughts, pulling me in, dragging me deeper and deeper into her grasp. I don't know how long I lay there, drenched in sweat, trapped by the suffocating silence. At some point, exhaustion took over. My body betrayed me. I closed my eyes, hoping for rest, praying for the escape of sleep. But sleep never came. The dream came instead. It started so innocently. A quiet street, mist curling at my feet, the echo of my shoes against the wet pavement. The world was blanketed in fog, the dim streetlights flickering in and out like dying stars. I walked, numb, as if the whole world around me was fading into some distant memory. The street stretched on endlessly, the sound of my footsteps the only thing breaking the silence. But then I saw her. She was standing there, still as stone, beneath a flickering street lamp. That smile, that grotesque, wide smile, grew larger, impossibly larger, until it stretched across her face, until it was the only thing I could see. The kind of smile that shouldn't belong to a human, but to something else, something wrong. My heart thudded in my chest. My feet stopped moving. I could feel my skin crawling with the terror I had denied for so long. Her eyes, those eyes, were locked on mine. There was something in them, something that made my bones ache. I couldn't look away. I didn't want to look away. It was as if I was being pulled toward her, toward that smile, like gravity was working in reverse. But then I broke the connection. I looked away, and when I did, she moved. She didn't walk. She didn't move the way a normal person would. It was like she shifted, like the space between us was closing, collapsing. She was closer now, much closer, and her smile, it didn't fade, it only grew wider, like it was meant to swallow the world whole. My body froze. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to scream, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Why couldn't I move? And then I woke up. At least, I thought I did. The light in my room flickered, the shadows of the night pressing in on me again. The same feeling, the same suffocating presence, the same sense of something wrong. But this time, I wasn't in the street. I wasn't in some foggy nightmare. No, I was back in my apartment. But it didn't feel like my apartment anymore. I stood up, my feet shaky, my legs barely able to hold me as I stumbled toward the hallway mirror. I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't fight it. I had to see it. I had to look. The mirror was cold, the glass slick with something. Something that felt too real. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to face it, but I couldn't resist. My hand reached out, trembling as it touched the cold surface of the glass. And there she was. In the reflection, her smile, that awful, too wide smile, staring back at me, just behind me. Her eyes gleamed with that same predatory hunger, the same eerie glow. I could feel her. I could feel her watching me, even though she wasn't there. She wasn't in the room with me. She was in the reflection. But it was worse than that. I wasn't just looking at her anymore. I was looking at myself. I was in the reflection now. But I wasn't the same. The man staring back at me, standing frozen in front of the mirror, wasn't me. No, he had my face, but something was wrong. His smile, my smile, was stretched beyond reason, beyond human capability, like my face was being torn apart by the grin that had taken over. I blinked, once, twice, but the smile didn't fade. It couldn't. It wouldn't. I turned my head, but in the reflection I stayed the same. The man in the mirror didn't move. He was locked in place, frozen with that twisted grin, his eyes wide and gleaming, just like hers. My hands were shaking. I tried to pull away, tried to escape the mirror, but the reflection wouldn't let me go. I could feel my body moving closer to the glass, drawn to it, as if the mirror were pulling me in, as if it wanted me to stay. "You belong to me now," the voice whispered, soft, chilling, like a breath on the back of my neck. The words wrapped around me, suffocating me, drowning me in fear. And I knew, deep down, that it was too late. I wasn't just seeing her anymore. I was becoming her. I smiled, and the reflection smiled back. I hadn't left the apartment for days. At least, I didn't think I had. The world outside felt too far away, too alien. Every time I tried to step out, it was like something tugged at my insides, pulling me back to the mirror. And it wasn't just the mirror, it was the reflection. It was always there. It haunted every reflective surface, the windows, the glass, the polished furniture, but it was the mirror that became my obsession. I couldn't stop myself. Every time I walked past it, I was drawn in. That smile, the smile that wasn't mine, yet was, somehow, I couldn't escape it. I tried. I told myself it was a trick, some nightmare, some deep, gnawing fear manifesting itself. But I couldn't escape it. And more than that, I didn't want to. The man in the mirror wasn't me anymore. It wasn't. The face was mine, yes, but the smile, it wasn't my smile, it was hers. It stretched wider than any human face should ever be capable of. And those eyes, they weren't mine. They gleamed in that same unnatural way, glowing with a coldness that sent a shiver down my spine. I thought maybe I was just losing my mind. Maybe I was delusional. Maybe the stress had driven me to the edge, and this was my mind's way of showing me just how close I was to breaking. But no, it wasn't my mind, it was her. I didn't want to look. I knew what would happen. But like a moth to a flame, I couldn't stop myself. I stood before the mirror again, my fingers cold as I reached out to touch the glass. My hand trembled, the sound of my breath loud in the silence of the room. And there she was, she, standing just behind me in the reflection. Her smile. It was so wide, so twisted, that I could almost hear her face tearing apart at the edges. It was my smile. It was mine, but it was hers too. A grotesque, impossible thing that didn't belong on a human face. I tried to move. I tried to step back, but my feet were glued to the floor. I couldn't move. And that's when it hit me. She was never outside of me. I thought I was running from her. I thought I could escape her, escape the reflection, the glass, the mirror. But I was wrong. She was always inside me. She had always been inside me from the moment our eyes first met, from the moment I looked too long, from the moment I made the mistake of seeing her. I wasn't fighting her. I had become her. My breath hitched, and I tried to pull away from the mirror, but I couldn't. I couldn't escape the pull of her gaze, of her presence, of the smile that was now stretching my face in ways it shouldn't. The reflection shifted, like liquid moving through still water. The edges blurred, distorted, and I felt something tug at my insides. It felt like I was being pulled in. I wasn't standing before the mirror anymore. No, I was in it. My reflection was no longer a mirror image, it was real. I could feel the cold air of the glass against my skin, the vibration in the air, like the world around me was rippling, bending. Her voice, her soft voice, whispered into my mind. You looked, you saw, and now you are mine. I tried to scream, but the sound didn't come. I couldn't scream. The reflection, my reflection, it was me, but it wasn't. Her smile was there. It was mine. It had become part of me, part of my face, part of my very soul. I wanted to close my eyes. I wanted to forget it all, forget her, forget the smile that was now mine. But I couldn't. It was too late. Welcome, she whispered, the words cutting through me, sharp and cold. Welcome to eternity. And just like that, I understood everything. The whispers, the eyes, the smile. I wasn't just trapped in the mirror, I had become part of it. I had become part of her. And the worst part? I wanted it. I smiled. It wasn't just her smile anymore, it was mine. I can't tell you how long it's been since I last felt human. Time no longer matters to me. It's just a blur now, fading in and out like a dream that won't quite leave. I haven't left this apartment. I can't bring myself to. The world outside doesn't exist anymore. It's all in the reflection. The mirror is my only world now, my reality. And when I look into it, I no longer see a man. I am not a man anymore. I'm her. The truth crept up on me, slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor, unnoticed at first. It didn't start with some grand revelation, some dramatic moment of clarity. No, it started with the smile. The wide, grotesque, twisted smile. I didn't recognize it at first, but I do now. I see it every time I stand before the mirror. It's mine, but it's not. It's hers. It's ours. I don't know when it happened, but I'm starting to think I never had a choice in the matter. Not really. I thought I could run from it. I thought I could resist. But the longer I fought it, the more it sank into me, like the reflection was pulling me in bit by bit until it wasn't just the glass anymore. It was inside me. I can feel her now. I can feel the smile stretching my face, like it's carved into my skin, pulling at my mouth. I can feel her eyes, too. Those eyes, those gleaming, predatory eyes. They were never hers. They were always mine. I can see the world through them now. The people, the places, everything. They're all a reflection. I can see the fear before it even starts. I can see their souls the moment they step into the light. I used to fear this. I used to fight it. But now I welcome it. It's funny how your mind works when it's been broken, when it's been twisted into something unrecognizable. I don't feel the panic anymore. I don't feel that same choking fear I felt when she first appeared. The fear that consumed me. That fear is gone. It was always supposed to be this way. I was always supposed to be part of this. I stopped fighting. I stopped screaming. I stopped pretending that I was anything but what I have become. And now I know. The smile. It's not just my smile anymore, it's everyone's. The reflection isn't just mine, it's spreading. Slowly, quietly, subtly, but it's spreading. Every time I look at the mirror, every time I stare deep enough, I see it. I see them, the people outside, walking by, living their lives. They don't know, not yet, but they will. Because when I look into the reflection, I see it, the smile. It's there, the gleam in their eyes, the twisted grin. It's spreading, just like it spread to me. The smile, the eyes, that hunger. It only takes one look, one glance, and they'll be like me. They'll become her. I'm no longer just a spectator. I'm a part of it. I'm inside it. I'm the reflection. And now, I see it in every glass, in every polished surface, in every window. It's there, watching, waiting, ready to consume. They'll look, and they won't be able to stop. And soon, the world will be full of smiles. And I'll be there, watching, with her, with us. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.